After several twists and turns, finally the matter of Ukraine has been solved by the European countries, and they excluded USA out of their scope. How did they do it? What exactly happened? And why half of the world was ready to go into the war, and suddenly this peace process started? What convinced them to make a peace deal, an agreement with Russia and Ukraine? Before I go to the detail, my name is Sebi Kazmi and you're watching Conflict Times. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and press the bell icon so you can keep having all the updates on daily basis. From the past few weeks, Ukraine and Russia's issue in every newspaper, every news channel, it was on the top headlines. And what was the exact issue between Russia and Ukraine? They did not want to go to deal with Europe. And the USA and Europe, they both, or we can say NATO and the USA, till yesterday, US President Joe Biden was beefing up the soldiers, and he has just sent 8,500 soldiers to Eastern Europe ready to fight at a moment's notice against Russia. Biden said he was also planning to send more weapons to Ukraine, which I believe was just reckless, and he was asking for a war. US assistance to Ukraine is targeted to promote political and economic reforms and to address urgent humanitarian needs. That's what US claims. In addition to diplomatic support in conflict with Russia, the US provided Ukraine with US $1.5 billion in military aid from 2014 to 2019. Canada recently pledged $40 million to Ukraine. Why every country in Europe wants to help Ukraine against Russia? But now, two main European countries played very well by keeping the US on the sides, and it was a four-way conversation between Russia, Ukraine, Germany and France for 8 hours before they agreed on a ceasefire in Donbass. The agreement, which was formed in 2014 by both parties, that they will not get into the war. Just a quick history of the agreement: Ukraine and Russia are in a war near eastern Ukraine or Donbass. The ceasefire must have disappointed USA, who spent $1.5 billion in 6 years. Now this situation is between US and Russia, and now the blame game begins. Vladimir Putin's belief that Biden is helping Ukraine and anyone who's against Russia at the moment by supplying those weapons of mass destruction, intelligence support, and political help. He says he has no intentions to start this war with the US, but we all know it's not true. Putin believes that Ukraine is still part of Russia, and he wants Ukraine not to be a part of Europe, but with Eurasia or Russia itself. As you remember, when Ukraine was separated from USSR or former Soviet Union in 1991, their map was something like this. You can see next to me. But if you look at the map now, you will see the Crimea is there, and this is the part where Russia has a massive control. Many people ask why Russia would invade Ukraine or Crimea. But there are a lot of similarities between Russia and Crimea which makes them very similar, such as language, history, culture, values. They're all same. People in this part of Ukraine speak Russian, while the other part of the Ukraine in the middle section speaks Ukrainian. They are much influenced by Western or European countries or America. There is another factor which we should not forget, that Russia was becoming a nuclear power back in times, and they left these weapons in Ukraine, which Ukrainian returned back in 1995 on the condition that Russia will not influence on Ukraine, and then they make any agreement to any country. However, in 2014, this agreement was broken by President Viktor, who was supported by Russian government at that time. As they came out of an agreement with the European Union, they thought they should join now Russia. And this started the anarchy. And to stop all this, Russian army intervened. They entered into southeast of Ukraine and deployed their special forces on the Black Sea to stop all the trade. Later, the Ukraine government had a referendum in which majority of the people wanted to join Russia, but US and European Union stated this referendum as a bogus referendum, which has no political values because the force people was Russia. But Joe Biden had a plan, and this plan is very personally hurt Putin by putting direct economic sanctions on him over the possible attack of Ukraine. And the last important part is that Russia supplies 80% of the natural gas to Europe. This pipeline goes through Ukraine, so the infrastructure in Ukraine is very important for Russia. Ukraine started stealing this gas to fulfill their internal need. And the dispute of this gas resources with Russia and Ukraine started. Now, Russia wants Ukraine back as one of their own state, whereas NATO and America wants them to be separated and be a part of Europe. Biden has a plan. He wants to hurt Putin because he thinks that Putin might have a possible attack. Biden wants to anger him. So army will cross the border into Ukraine and attack, because he said when Russia attacks, it would be the largest invasion since World War II, and it would change the world. Joe Biden is hoping for a possible attack of Ukraine and potential escalation in the next few weeks. But these two European countries, along with Ukraine and Russia, played a very sensible game. And they excluded US out of the game and made a peace deal. Because US was escalating tension, the crisis is over, but the US and NATO, Russia has made demands that Ukraine should never be allowed to join NATO. Russia has an economic, of course, superpower, gas. They just built $11 billion gas pipeline, which runs from Siberia to Germany. This gas pipeline can heat over 26 million German homes. So the US and Germany are currently in disagreement over this gas pipeline. The US helped prepare the diversion of natural gas supplies from around the world to Europe in the event that the flow from Russia is cut. It is an effort to blunt Putin's most powerful economic weapon. Whatever happens, Ukraine and Russia is now entering into a ceasefire, which the whole world was watching, whole world was hoping, but US is not happy. And we will keep watching, keep looking at the new as it unfolds, as it comes, the new twists and turns. I'll be keep updating you. Stay tuned and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye till now. My name is Sebi Kazmi and you're watching Conflict Times.